I'm Kendra Ruczak. I'm here at View Conference 2023 with Peter Sohn, writer and director of Elemental and creative VP at Pixar. Thank you so much for being here
Yeah,
today.
thank you for
Really
having me.
appreciate it. I'd love to talk a little bit about Elemental. How did you begin the process of bringing that story to the screen? I know you wrote it also. You were very involved in the early development.
Yeah, I mean, it started about 7 years ago, if you can believe it. It was a long process, but it started from a very personal place and a seed, really. And it was about thanking our parents. And that seed started to evolve into other themes that bled into this world of elements. And once those two got married, we were off to the races, and it was just years of just building that up.
Wow. And how did you assemble your team? How did you find those department heads that were the right fit to tell the story?
Kendra, that's a really great question. It's a partnership with my producer, Denise Ream, where you would sort of get phases of the team. And so you would start just by yourself developing the project. And then once you hit a certain milestone, then a certain type of crew would begin. And so that was mostly artists and story artists. And so to take that as an example, with the team, we knew that there was a lot of first gen, second generation issues. There was a romance, so we started casting artists that had that background or that sort of those kind of tastes for romance.
Oh, wow. And specifically on the animation and VFX side, how did you approach actually creating these characters that are so unique and so different from anything else we've seen on screen before?
Well, at first it was just a really exciting prospect to build characters out of effects because it was hard to find. I hadn't found a lot of characters like this, and so there was this sort of little pathway of like, oh, this is untrodden grass right here. But I didn't know enough about visual effects. I always had a lot of hubris and ambition of like, we should be able to do this lickety split. But once we started getting the crew on and we started doing these experiments, I clearly saw like, oh, that's because I'm not really clear what they should look like. And then so that conversation grew and grew until we got more artists doing more experiments that would sort of give us answers that formed the characters.
Oh, wow. And I know it was so unique to have a character who's actually a light source, actually fire.
Yes.
So I know Ember took a lot of extra work on the VFX side. Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit about that process, how you finally reached that final form for her?
Yeah, one of the early lessons that we learned about Ember as a fire character was that we wanted her to feel like fire and not something that was on fire.
Yeah.
And so with that philosophy, we couldn't have a skeleton really. We had to build the body out of simulations. And so that was sort of this process of like, well, we know what we don't want. How does that help us find what we do want? And that was just this, you know, very long process of experimenting in these very short sprints where we would just try every couple weeks. Let's try this sort of, facial structure on flames. Let's try this type of flame, or let's try this type of body. And it was just that process for a couple of years.
So much collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how did you keep that collaborative environment going? Especially, I know you were partially in production during the pandemic.
Yes. It's so much about play. It's so much about trying to vibe with the crew and trying to play with the ideas so that we could all get excited around it. I really believe in an energy that can be formed when you're collaborating like that. And that energy is very specific when everyone's in on something. And like a drug, I chase for that feeling. And so as we're making something, trying to spit out ideas that, you can spit out an idea that dies and no one else is riffing off of it. And then sometimes you spit an idea that someone else will return an idea, and then you're just chasing for that sort of feeling in any department.
And all that collaboration really shows in the film. It's just really beautiful
Yeah,
work.
yeah, the crew was amazing. I'm so proud of what they did.
Such an achievement.
Thank you.
I'd love to go back to the beginning of your career.
Yeah.
How did you really launch this career path to be able to go on to direct these huge feature films and to work with such an amazing team?
I guess at a very young age, I just wanted to be an animator. I had no want to be a director or anything like that. It was just trying to make characters come alive through pencil and paper. And I started very young. I was, making flip books in elementary school. Once I got into high school, I started taking night classes in animation. And animation at the time was so expensive because you're painting cells, you're buying paper, reams of paper, and it would take forever to get like 10 seconds of animation would just be, it would just kill you. But that magic of seeing something blink and come alive would just keep driving you. And so it was just, and there was no internet at the time, so you just, whatever books that you could find, you would just hunt it down until you started finding your tribe. And once I got to animation school, CalArts, I found like-minded people where I could really start to obsess over this art form. And through that, I think grew more experience in what I wanted to do, story and animation. And from there, it was the luck of the draw, honestly. It was meeting a director. Brad Bird was pulling people from school, and I got lucky as my first gig on the film Iron Giant in 1999. And I was a 2D rough in-betweener. And Brad's amazing. He's such a fan of animation that he gave a couple of these young guys just a shot to animate. And that started triggering this experience that we've just been growing till now.
Oh, so it all really started with a love for animation from
Yeah.
the very beginning.
Yeah, meaning because I talk about how long it takes, because like if you don't have that passion, like you're just gonna be like, I spent all week, and you play the scene, it's like blip, it's just like a thing, a tiny little moment. And if you're not getting anything out of that, it's just very difficult to keep pushing forward.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Do you have any advice that maybe you wish you'd known when you first started out and you could pass on?
Ooh, good question. I think sharing your work as much as possible was something that I wish I had done more. I was very scared to show work because I didn't like it, and and so it was just like, oh, this needs to be better. So I would just sort of like, I had like a blanket over my little cube just to like hide away from everybody. But I remember a friend pulling me out and like sharing work, and once you start sharing, like you learn so much faster. And I wish I'd done that earlier.
That's such good advice.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
talking
Kendra.
to me today. It
Yeah.
was so great to hear about your career and about Elemental. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And make sure you check out the rest of our content from View Conference 2023.